Great. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Life Lessons with ChildLine Outreach Officer. My name is Aaron George, ChildLine's Outreach Officer, and I'll be facilitating today's session. And today we're going to be talking about the new normal coming out of COVID-19 and the challenges that we would have faced and the challenges we would have been experiencing adjusting to the new norm. So we're going to talk a little bit about it and ways that we could possibly cope with the ever so often changes that are taking place. But before I go into the content associated with the topic, I want to make mention of a particular comment that most people have been making throughout the year, which is that they want to boycott 2020. That 2020 has been the year that they did not expect, they did not see it coming, and things in life usually happen that way. You don't expect that you're going to have a respiratory virus that's going around and causing many persons to lose their lives. But I saw a quote recently, or more so like a meme, and I felt like it was really powerful, and I'm going to read it now before we go into the session, because I think it really sets the tone for understanding, and it changes the perspective when you think about the whole pandemic and the changes that come about with life. So the quote is, what if 2020 isn't cancelled? What if 2020 is the year that we've been waiting for? A year that is so uncomfortable, that is so painful, that's so scary, that is so raw, that it finally forces us as human beings to change and to grow. A year that screams so loudly, so adamant that we change, that we finally get awakened from our ignorant slumber. And it's a year that's asking each and every one of us to be the change that we want, to declare change, to work for change. And it's a year that finally human beings could actually come together instead of pushing each other apart. So 2020 is not necessarily cancelled, rather it's the most important year of them all. And I absolutely agree with that saying in its entirety. And I must admit that I also fell victim to thinking, ways 2020 is not a good year. But that was just one perspective of it. Another perspective is that it is a year that is providing us with an opportunity to change the way that we do things. It's forcing us to reflect and to change policies and to get creative and to work together. It's forcing collaboration among the humans. So with that being said, thanks to the pandemic, of course, a lot of us have been confined to our homes. We've been unable to leave unless it was for essential reasons. We witnessed vibrant cities and countries fall flat overnight, just in an attempt to save lives from this invisible enemy that we're all battling against. And if someone told me that this was going to be the case a year ago, I would think that they were pitching like a movie plot, or they were going to write a book or something. I would never think that this would actually be the case. But it just goes to show that the only constant thing in life is change. And sometimes we have to adjust the expectations that we have when it relates to anything, whether it be personal relationships, work, school, and what you personally had set for yourself for this year. You may have to adjust those things ever so often. So world leaders and scientists are now trying their best to find a vaccine. Of course, there are many tests that have been done so far, and there seems to be one particular vaccine that seems to be coming along the way, but a full-on 100% cure vaccine is not necessarily going to be available anytime soon. Scientists have projected that up to 2021 we could be waiting on this vaccine, but we can just hope for the best. In the meantime, while we wait for that and we adjust to the new norms, there are some things that we could do or things that we could keep in mind that will help us as we journey through this particular chapter of our lives. And I'll come back to this whole chapter analogy soon enough, because we want to look at life as a book, and this is just possibly a difficult chapter in the book. It does not necessarily mean that we have a difficult life entirely. So things have changed. Yes, that's a given. We know that things have changed. For example, we now have to wear masks and gloves everywhere. Not necessarily the gloves, but at the very least the mask. We are now asked to use it when we go to the stores, to go into groceries. We have to still wash our hands, and of course there are lots of signs around that say no mask, no service. And yesterday I also forgot my mask home, and I couldn't go buy food simply because I didn't have a mask. So you see, things have changed overnight, and it may be difficult for some of us to cope with the changes associated with the pandemic, but if we take a moment to adjust our expectations, it could be very beneficial for us. So what are some of the ways that life has changed? In addition to the mask wearing and so on, we now have to queue in professionals before we visit them. So that's the second thing. You can't just decide that, you know what, you're going to get up and walk straight to the hospital if you're experiencing certain symptoms. You can't just go straight to your general practitioner's office because of the fear that symptoms that you may have could possibly be related to the coronavirus. You now have to call them and let them know that you're expecting to come in. Public transportation looks completely different as well, with social distancing in place, and of course wearing masks and so on. Persons in the maxis or taxis, they have not been sitting close to each other. They've been very vigilant of each other. If somebody's sneezing and coughing, because over the last few months we have been taught to be hyper vigilant about these types of behaviors: coughing, sneezing, anyone who seems to have the flu. So our standards when it relates to personal hygiene has heightened. We've now started holidaying in our backyards instead of going abroad or going to parties or going out for dinners or going to fetes. We now spend that same time that we usually would go out at home, finding a way to make it as exciting as possible, of course adhering to the social norms that have been stipulated now by various governments. We also have small things that make up our community have changed. So for example, there are no more sporting events taking place that are very large. There are not any competitions on recreational grounds anymore. So small businesses also have had to change their operations, and of course some of these business owners faced a number of challenges during this time. For example, hairdressers, barbers, restaurants, health professionals, news agents, boutiques, all of these places would have been affected by COVID-19, and they too had to make some level of adjustment to the way that things would have operated or the way things would have functioned. And the larger sporting landscape has changed as well. Sporting leagues have been paused. The Olympics, planning for it has been halted. So globally, the change is being experienced, and essentially what we want to be mindful of is how can we cope during a time like this. And we have 5 main tips that we're going to be offering to persons, and the first one is to adjust your expectations. There is an expectation that you could get up and you could go and move around as freely as you wish. However, because of the restrictions or because of the policies that are now in place, we're not able to move around as freely. If you adjust your expectations, and there's that saying, no expectations, no disappointment. It's kind of like that. We can try our best to be mindful that things are constantly changing, and our world as we knew it is not necessarily going to be the same. So we have to expect that things are going to be a little bit different. If we expect that, then we're taking a step in the right direction. We also want to don't view everything that you had as essential. So for example, going to the movies, going to the beach, going to a bar and having a drink to de-stress on a Friday. Some of us may have thought previously that these things were absolutely necessary for us and for our lives. However, COVID had a different opinion about all of that, and it puts things into perspective where we now acknowledge that we don't really need these things. These things are actually a luxury that we would have been abusing at some point in time, and there are other alternatives for coping with stress or dealing with family problems, dealing with conflict, dealing with workplace challenges, dealing with the anxiety associated with school. There are many other alternatives, and throughout the past few months we've been managing or employing or practicing a lot of those techniques. Another way that we could possibly cope is to focus on what we could do as opposed to focusing on what we can't do. Many people would have thought that, you know what, COVID came around, so we can't do this, we can't go here, we can't do this, we can't do that. But by having that mindset, we're kind of glass half empty instead of being glass half full. So focusing on what we can actually do will help us understand that at the end of the day there are still things that we can do, and if we focus on what we don't have, then we will never have enough. So we always need to be mindful that what we have at hand is going to be important, and it can be important. You just have to give it the time and give it due respect. Also, you want to go, possibly as a form of coping, you want to go on a politeness binge. What does a politeness binge mean? It means simply just being nice to people as far as possible and as often as you possibly can. Reason being, there are not many things that we can do in terms of interactions with persons, or the way that social interactions may have been before. It's completely changed now. We have social distancing, we have to stay 3 to 6 feet apart from persons, so you're not able to probably have an embrace the way that you'd normally have with your friends when you meet up. When you meet up, it may be, hey, hi from a distance, but if you still take opportunities to be polite and be friendly, whether it be posting up something positive about the frontline workers who are still very much dealing with all the COVID cases that are around the world, if we take a moment to just be thankful to our family members for understanding us when we lost our job, or understanding that we might have been having a bad day, so they still try to do something to make us feel a little comfortable. All of those things, we want to show persons that gratitude, because the world is being consumed with so much negativity at this point in time, so many challenges. If we could add some level of positivity to the world, definitely do so. And of course, you want to think of your life, or think of this particular situation, or this current state of events, as just one chapter in the book that you are writing. And that's the point that we're going to run with a lot more for this little talk here. You want to view your life as a narrative, looking at life as a series of chapters in a particular book, which will provide you with like a sense of control and agency in terms of when you feel helpless in situations. So you may think, wow, I lost my job. However, it's only in this chapter I lost my job. If you look at it as the chapter, you may be a little more objective in your analysis of things, as opposed to looking at it as having a terrible life, because some people mistake a bad day with a bad life. So keep in mind that you're writing a story, and one of the best ways that you can cope is to acknowledge the fact that one day this is all going to end. Just like every chapter in a book, it will come to an end, and it will help you if ever you're feeling that level of frustration, or you're feeling so engulfed in the moment that you don't know necessarily what you can do or what you should do to calm down. Keep in mind that there are these other options. You can engage in light reading to take your mind off of the activity or whatever it is stressing you out. Any positive activity, you could think about it that way. So chaos and uncertainty, definitely something that has been ever so present with COVID being around, and there are a number of ways for us to manage it, like we said. So keep in mind that at the end of it all, it's a book that you're writing. and this is just one, probably long, but it is just one chapter in the entire book, and one day it is going to end. So try at very least each day, have a few thoughts, take a moment and gather yourself and think about some of the things that you had today, the positive things that you experienced during the day. Maybe you woke up and you had a nice breakfast, somebody opened the door for you, somebody made you smile, your boss cracked a joke and you found it was funny, and your boss usually never makes joke. Whatever it may be, sit down and reflect on those things so that you could appreciate the positives in life as it relates to coping with the new norm, and try your best to avoid the negative thoughts, the negative feelings, and the negative interactions with persons. There are a lot of memes going around now that's promoting violence and causing some level of separation in society, but this isn't the time that we need to be fighting against each other. We need to be working with each other. So keep in mind that at the end of it all, this is your chapter, this is your book, this is your life, and you are the author. You get to write whatever you want in it. You have the opportunity to forge the new future. You have the opportunity to write that script and to set yourself on that particular trajectory. It's all up to you. Whether COVID is here or not, you have that option. So always keep that in mind, and always know that there are agencies that are out there to provide you with assistance if ever you need it. We have ChildLine, and I'll just tell you a little bit about ChildLine service for those of you who may not be familiar. ChildLine is a non-governmental organization that is there to protect young persons and their rights. And when I say young persons, anyone under the age of 25 years old could receive assistance at ChildLine, but there are many instances where persons over the age of 25 would have received assistance because it would have been in the best interest of a child. So we have 3 units that work together. The core of ChildLine is considered the Helpline, and it's available 24/7. We have a toll-free number, 800-4321 or 131. You can call at any point in time using any phone to talk about any issues that you may be experiencing. Things ranging from bullying to sexual abuse. Maybe you just might want a story read, maybe you had a bad day, whatever it may be, you have that opportunity to reach out to the helpline. It is free of charge, and all calls are confidential, which means that it's private. So whatever is said between you and the helpline listener will remain private. The second part of ChildLine is called the outreach unit, and that's where officers like myself, we go into the schools, community centers, camps, churches, playgrounds, wherever they are. Youths are, parents are, and we facilitate workshops on psychosocial issues, things like bullying, anger management, and puberty. And we also have the counseling unit, which is where persons could receive psychosocial support or mental health assistance. So always remember that ChildLine is there to assist. If ever you have any questions, concerns, any queries, you want to find out how you could possibly cope, or you maybe want some ideas for your new chapter in life, feel free to reach out to us. We're always there to provide you with that level of assistance, and as much as we can. Although we are a small agency, we try our best to do as many powerful things as possible, and education in any form or fashion is what we are about. So please feel free to reach out to us. We also have our online chat feature for those of you who may not feel comfortable talking on the phone. You can go up onto ChildLine's website, which is www.childlinett.org, and there's a little chat bubble that you could speak with one of our professionals and on any issues that you may be experiencing, and that too is confidential. So that's our little video today. So keep in mind that a bad day doesn't mean a bad life. Godspeed, and do have a wonderful day.